Hi, it's Jenny from the Missouri Star Quilt Company, and it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. We here at the Missouri Star are in the mood. We've got the shop decorated, we've got Christmas going, and I'm here to show you some fun and easy projects. Today we're going to talk about tree skirts. Almost everybody needs a new tree skirt once in a while, and they have personalities all their own. So what we're going to talk about, here's a pretty example. This is a tree skirt that I've made with Yuletide, and basically what you have to remember that is so simple is that basically all it is a little quilt. It's just like making a little baby quilt. We're just sewing charms together, and so let me just tell you what we're going to need for this project. I'm going to put this over here. What we're going to need is, you're going to need a rotary cutter. You're going to need some scissors, and you're going to need a marking pen. I like this friction one because you can iron off the marks if you make them in the wrong place, and sometimes we make mistakes. The other technical item you're going to need is a technical object like this, high-tech paper plate. Actually, what it's for is the circle in the center of the quilt. I'm going to show you how to find that center. You're going to put your paper plate or your roll of duct tape or your bed riser, whatever it is that has the size circle that you need, and we're going to trace that in the middle, and then you got to be brave and cut into that quilt. So the other thing that you're going to need are some charm packs, and it takes 2 to make a good-sized quilt. I have 2 Fala-Las here. And we want to keep this quilt square. So the Fala-La has 42. That gives us 84 charm packs. We're going to use 81 of them and put 9 across and 9 down, which will give us a square little quilt. So what we're going to do is crack one of these open. And what I like to do is I like to separate my charms into colorways. So I'll have the lights, and I'll have the darks, and I'll have the reds, and I'll have the greens. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one from each pile, or sew 2 of them together actually, but I'll have my piles of colors here mixed up so that we can sew them together. So you put them right sides together, and we're going to sew this side, and remember it's 1/4 inch. So we're going to come over here to the sewing machine, and we're just going to go ahead and sew right down the side of this. And then we're going to come over here to the ironing board. Let me move this a little bit so you can see better. And we're going to set this seam right here, and then we're going to roll it back. Now on this one, on these, it's because these are all going to go together in long rows. You just want to make sure that you press one row all the same direction, so that when you attach the next row, they'll all be the other direction, and those seams will nest right together. So you're going to go ahead and sew 9 of these together to make a long row. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's do one more while we're here. I'll mix it up a little bit. All right, so we're going to attach a red one to this, and we're just going to keep adding them on like this. So we have 2, and we'll sew this together on the 1/4 inch, and that will give us 3, and we'll keep going until we have 9. There we go. So again, once you get your next one on, you're just going to come over here to the sewing machine, set your seam, and roll that back. So you just kind of want to make sure they're all kind of going in the same direction. All right, so we'll meet you back here in a few minutes, and I'll sew some more together. Okay, so now I have this little top. I've sewn 9 squares together, and I have 9 rows. So that takes almost all my charms. And it's just kind of a square. It doesn't look much like a tree skirt yet. It's just kind of a square. So I wanted you to take a look over here at this one. This I made with 2 Yuletide charm packs, and it has a really kind of roundish, fun look to it. And what I'm going to show you today is how to put on these angled borders so that your Christmas tree has a more rounder shape to it, and it really looks like a Christmas tree skirt then, a little more than just the square. The square is cute and darling, but let's festive that up a little bit. All right, right here on the corner of our little quilt, this is your corner right here, and we're going to trim that off. You have to be a little brave to do this. So here's where our rotary cutter comes in. We're going to take our ruler, and right here on these corners, can you see these little corners right here? We're going to put this ruler, slide it over there so they slide in 1/4 of an inch. So you're 1/4 of an inch on the outside of both of these corners, like here. So what you're using this for your measurement and 1/4 of an inch over here. And then we just hold our breath and be brave and make that cut. So we cut that off. We're going to do this to all the corners of our little quilt. And again, we're just 1/4 of an inch over, and we make that cut. It's starting to look a little more circular, which is kind of what we want from a tree skirt. It's really personal preference how you do your tree skirt, but it's so easy because basically it's just 2 charm packs with the rows sewn together. Now here we are at the last one. There we go. We're just being brave. So here we go. Here's what we have. We have this little quilt that's going to be a tree skirt, and we've got our corners cut off. And a lot of times this kind of bordering on the corner makes people really nervous, but let me just show you how easy this is. So what we're going to do is we want to decide what size border we want. I think I'm going to use this green fabric right here. I think that'll set it off, keep in the Christmas mood. And I think what I'd like to do is maybe do a 3-inch border. So instead of doing a couple of borders, I'll do one little bit wider. I'm going to do a 3-inch border. The first thing you always want to do on your fabric, when you're trimming your fabric, you want to line it up. And you want to make sure that you have a straight edge to work with. So we're lining our fabric so that it's even along this line of the mat. And then we're going to put our ruler evenly along this side. And we're going to trim that edge off so that we have an exact straight edge to work with. And we can get rid of that. And then we're just going to cut 3-inch strips. I think for this size, this is going to be... it's about 40 inches. So I'm going to cut, I know for sure I'll need 4 because the width of the fabric is 40 inches. And then I'll probably cut 1 extra just in case, because I just like to be sure. You know, I want to have all my stuff cut before I begin. So, if you cut 5 3-inch borders, that's 15 inches. So for the border on this, you're going to need a 1/2 yard. And that's a real easy way to remember that. So for your border, you'll need a 1/2 yard. And I'm just going to cut 1 more to make sure. Now, one thing about this fabric here, this line, they do a little border thing on here, right here. See, it has this little kind of stitch pattern right before the selvage area, and we're going to go ahead and trim that off because we don't want that showing up in our border. So I'm going to trim that off. I'm going to stack a couple here, make sure they're lined up, make sure it's straight on the ruler. That helps you get a good line, a good straight line on your end. And I'm just going to go ahead and trim this off. I'm going to trim out as far as I can without hitting that line because I don't want that in my border. All right, so what we're going to do now, this is kind of fun, is we are going to sew these border pieces along the side. And so it's going to hang off on both ends. So I'm going to leave a little bit of overhang over here, and then I'm going to just sew that border on there. Now when you sew a border on a small area like this, you want to put your border piece on the top because the bottom will draw in more fabric than the top will. Because of those feed dogs, it'll draw in more fabric. And what you want is you want it to, you don't want wavy borders. So we're just going to put our border on the top. So we leave a little bit extra over here because this is going to come up here and we want to make sure that we have enough, and we're just going to sew this on. The trick on this one isn't the sewing, it's the trimming. And it's just so easy once you do it. I think you'll really enjoy this kind of bordering and you'll want to do it a lot. So I put a little pin in here and I just removed that because I don't want to sew over it. And I'm going to, remember you're going to have your border piece on the top. We're going to sew straight down and I'm just going to make sure I hold the top piece pretty, just in my hand. Let's see, we're kind of bunching up here. Let me get my little scissor. Clip this thread, it caught on my foot. That happens sometimes. And here we go. We're going to sew all the way down here until we hit the end of our curve. All right, we are there. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to iron this open. We'll set that seam, and then we're just going to iron this open. Now, when you attach these borders, what you're going to do is you're going to attach all the long side, not the corners yet, just all the long sides. So you're going to do 4 of those long sides. And what we're going to do here, now you see how this has these tails. Here's how we make this work and make this part of the quilt. What we're going to do is we're going to line up the ruler with the edge of our quilt that we've cut. And we're going to slide these ends off like this. So the next time we add our border here, it's just on a straight edge. It's just a straight border. So let's go ahead and add, trim this one. Let me see, this is always the hard side for me because of I'm so left-handed. All right, here we go. We got this way. Make sure everything's laying out nice and straight. Slide your ruler. You know, a lot of times if you just slide that ruler up there, it kind of straightens everything as it goes. And we're going to trim this off. And we may need those smaller pieces, so we're going to hang on to those. All right, now what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to attach the next large border piece on the other side. So see, I'm leaving this corner bare. And then I'm going to attach all the long side, my borders to the long side. So let's go ahead and put this border on the long side. Again, we're going to leave a little bit of an overhang, put our border piece on the top, and just sew 1/4 inch straight down the side. I've done several table runners where I've angled the ends and used this type of border. It's just really a cute look. So what I'm doing is I'm going along, use a pin if you feel you need to. I just kind of hold it together with my thumb and sew a little bit and reposition to make sure that I'm still completely lined up with the edge. I want that to stay right on the edge. And then let's go ahead and iron this back now, and we're going to trim this one the same way. So we're going to iron here. We're going to again set our seam and then go ahead and roll that back. And then we're going to trim it. And then we can add that little corner piece. All right, so make sure your ruler's lined right up along that edge and trim that edge. Let's go to this side. And we're going to make sure your ruler's right along that edge, just like that. And then we're going to trim it. All right, now what we got to do is we got to put the border on the corner. And we're going to do this same thing. We're going to take off this little bit of selvage on this. Probably should have done that at the beginning, got all those cleaned up. And then we're going to go ahead and do the same thing we did on the sides, only this time it's straight across the border. So here we go, back to the sewing machine. 1/4 of an inch. You have a little bit of overhang. Actually, let me get a little more overhang there. There we go. And we just sail down this side. Now this side, you've cut the corner open, so you want to make sure that you do not stretch that side, because what you're dealing with now is some of those bias cuts. You know, your corners are going to be on the bias, so they'll be a little more stretchy. So make sure you don't stretch them. You just let it slide through the sewing machine. Keep your top border nice and snug. And then we're going to trim this off. One more cut. There we go. We're going to iron this back. Here we are. So now what you're going to do is you're going to lay your ruler along the edge of your border, and it's the same thing. You just cut off those corners. So it gives you that perfect little edge. You know, it makes that, gives you that rounded look without any trouble at all. You haven't had to fold anything. You haven't had to miter anything. And so we're just lining it up on the edge and trimming. So let me move this so you can get a good look at this. So here, this whole quilt, this whole little tree skirt is going to be bordered like that. So isn't that a nice little edge on there? With, you know, no mitering, no nothing, just a nice little border. So let me show you another tree skirt where I've got both edges on there. Oh, here we go. Okay, so this tree skirt I double bordered. You know, I put the one on, and they're all done the same way. You can see we have the little cuts that run. The fun thing about piecing borders like this is that once you quilt it, it really doesn't show. So once you get your top finished, so then once you get all your borders on, and you'll need about 1.5 yards for backing, then you're going to quilt it. And you can quilt it on your little machine. You know, you can stitch in the ditch, you can do little patterns that you want, or you can take it to a quilter. We have a long arm here, so they put on some of these fun snowflakes on here. So now comes the part where you have to be really brave. We're going to cut this tree skirt and make a circle so the trunk can fit in. So what you want to do is you want to find the middle. So I fold this tree skirt in half. Hang on now. We've got a good half here, and we're going to find the middle. And my middle, so my middle is going to show up right about here, and I want to put a pin there so that I can find that middle. Now I'm going to open this up, and I have my middle, and so I know what I'm looking for is this square right here, this green square. So I know this square is the middle. And then what I also know is that because this is a square quilt, this is going to be the middle on both sides. So then what I want to do is I'm going to make a cut right up here to this center. So what we're going to do is we are going to take our ruler, and we're going to come in, because this is a finished 4.5 inch block, because we started off with 5, then you're going to come in, you know, 2.25 inches from the edge. Wait, I have this on the wrong side. I'm like, what is going on? Okay, there we go. So 2.25 inches, and this is where your little pen comes in handy. Your little pen that you'll be able to erase, you know, or what it, you know. Actually, you don't even need to worry about the erase because you're going to bind right over this. And then we've got our technical, highly technical paper plate, and we're going to put that in the center right here, and we're going to mark around that. Now you could use a straight cut binding on this quilt for everything but the circle, so you have to cut a bias. And if you need a refresher course on how to make bias binding, we have a great tutorial on that. You can check that out. So look how brave. I'm just cutting right through my finished quilt. So scary, but what you need to make are these pants, Christmas pants that can go around your tree. And you want just a nice circle. So there we have our hole for the center. Pretty cool, huh? And so a little quilt with just some charms sewn together becomes a tree skirt. So let me show you this one over here that's finished. I'll put this one here. This was a tree skirt where I used 2 Tidings charm packs. And see, this is why they call them Christmas pants. Because, you know, they're just kind of got the pants going on. This is 2 Tidings charm packs right here. It's a little bit smaller because there's a little bit fewer charms in here. There's only 64. And so that gives you an even 8 by 8 is 64. And so it just makes a cute one. Now I didn't do the deep cut on mine. I just cut the corner off barely, and then I went ahead and used a bias as my edging. So these can be as difficult or as easy as you want. So now you've put your bias binding on your quilt, and you've gone ahead and gone around the circle. And when you get ready to sew this down by hand or by machine, however you're going to do it, I always do my binding by hand. But I just slipped a little piece of the extra leftover binding under the edge so that I could tie this together on the tree and it would give it that finish. You could use a piece of Velcro, you could do all kinds of things, but I just wanted, you know, a little tie to be on there. And just remember, if you need a hint on how to do your bias binding, we have a great tutorial on that. We hope you enjoyed this Christmas project from the Missouri Star Quilt Company.